Okay, 2007 Jeep Wrangler. Changing the oil pan gasket. I changed this gasket probably about 70,000 miles ago. And it's leaking again. It's got just a small puddle. Not a puddle, but leaves a stain, small stain on the driveway. So I'm going to go ahead and change it. 3.8 liter V6, 2007 Wrangler. We'll just go through and change. I've already drained the oil out of the pan, so I'm going to zip this thing off real quick and we'll get her done. First thing is this support little cover here. Alright, that's 15 millimeter, by the way, and then the oil pan itself is 10 millimeter. Now you've got an upper and a lower oil pan gasket. I have not been able to find a lower oil pan gasket, which is this one. This they just RTV on. I don't think it's leaking from that. I think it's just the upper gasket. So that's all we're going to tackle here. I'm going to take this upper, the oil pan off, including the upper oil pan adapter, or whatever they call it. They've actually got a name for this. I can't remember what it is. And we're just going to replace that gasket. I'm going to put a bucket underneath that. I don't know if you can see the pickup. I thought those were drops, but they're not. And now's a good time to kind of look up in the engine, make sure that it's not sludged up and that it looks pretty clean. And it looks good. I run Valvoline conventional oil in this, and I change it every 5,000 miles. So it just goes to show you how clean Valvoline is. You want the mating surface dry, so clean as much oil off of it as you can to make sure that it's clean and dry. Just to kind of show you how much oil. So I let this set after I drained the oil for quite a bit. I was actually in the house as it was draining. I come back out and it was, I mean, there wasn't even any drops coming out of it. And there's probably, I don't know, a cup of oil left in it. Just in case you want to know, whenever you do an oil change, about how much old oil is left in it. Nothing you can do about it, really. But clearly, all the oil doesn't come out of it. And again, make sure that this surface right here is as clean as you can get, as dry and clean and smooth. That there's no gasket material stuck to it or anything like that. Now, this time around, so they call this the upper oil pan gasket. And you can see there's a lower oil pan. Like I said, I couldn't find a gasket. They just RTV that on. And I'm pretty sure that's tight, that the oil's not leaking from there, that it's coming from the actual gasket right here. But if you do want to go ahead and tackle this, just pull this oil pan off, do the same thing, clean it up, make sure it's nice and dry, and the manual tells you to put a 1/8 inch bead of RTV around that oil pan and then bolt it back up. I'm not going to do that. If it still leaks after I get this done, and if it still tends to leak, I'm just going to pull the lower pan off, and I'll just do it too. But this is just showing you the upper oil pan gasket replacement. There's the old gasket. It doesn't look bad, except I mean, it is kind of smashed in some areas. It does have built-in washers, so theoretically you're not supposed to be able to over tighten this. Now you do have to put RTV in 4 spots on there, and I'm about to show you that. So I'm going to pause the video and kind of get cleaned up here, get the gasket out of the pack right here. There's the new gasket. And we're going to get this put on. So I'm going to pause it. I'll be right back. Okay, so here's the manual. They're showing taking the structure part out. Structural cover is what they call that. So right there in those 4 spots, you need an 1/8 inch bead of RTV. And then the gasket will smash up there and seal the little seams right there. And that's all that's for. 105 inch-pounds for the oil pan bolts. And then we'll press on. There is a little procedure for installing this correctly, and I'll show you that. If you want to just read it real quick, you can pause the video and read that. Now, I'm not taking the filter or this connector off. There's no reason for that. And I didn't disconnect the battery cable either. So, there's the procedure for that structural cover. And I'll go through, I'll kind of show you what the issue is with it and why you want to be able to do that correctly. Otherwise, you can bust that. It's just cast aluminum, so you'll be able to bust that if you don't do it right. So we're going to go ahead and press on with this. I'm going to put the pan on, the gasket, the RTV, and got the torque wrench all set up for 105 inch-pounds. And always pay attention whether it's inch-pounds or foot-pounds. Do not try torquing those at 105 foot-pounds. Totally different. You'll snap every one of those off. 105 inch-pounds. So let me get the camera set back up and we'll get her going. Okay, so you need a little RTV right there in those seams. That's on the back. And then on the front, right there. You want to look up in the engine, make sure that it's all clean and not sludged up. If it's sludged up, then you need to change engine oil more often, or brands of engine oil. Okay, so let me get this camera set back up. Now, for the part that can be a little tricky. Now, some of these come with little holders for the pan gasket. This brand gasket did not. So you just kind of got to hold the gasket up there. Throw the pan up. Okay, so once you get that up there, find some bolts. All right. Whew. Now all these bolts are the same length, so you don't have to worry about that. And remember, you just don't tighten them all up all at once. Now you got two nuts up on the front that you got to get. I know that's probably not in the camera. Okay. So I got them all ran up, but I don't have them tight. Now I'm going to tighten them with the torque wrench. Got the torque wrench set to 105 inch-pounds. Got mixed up there. I went down on the lower pan gasket. Or pan bolts, rather. All right. So now for the what they call the structural support. Hopefully you can see how some of these are slotted. So what you want you want to put this up there, and it's got to be up against the block. It's got to be up against the block and that pan and not pulled away from it, if that makes any sense. I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. And yeah, I could have washed all this off and made sure it's all clean, but I just want to get it done. It's hot today. I'll pressure wash all this maybe tomorrow, but right now I just want to get it done. So that's why I'm not worrying about washing it right now. So the manual wants you to snug these up to 25 inch-pounds. And all that's for is to make sure that it's pulled up against the transmission. Helps when you go the right way. Okay, I haven't tightened anything up here yet. That way it allows those slotted holes to, it allows the structural support to pull its way up onto the transmission. Now on these it just says tighten up. It did not give me a torque, I don't believe. So I'm just going to snug them up about as tight as I think they need to be. Alright, that's pretty much it. Now, the lower oil pan, if you need to take it off, you don't have to take the structural support off. You can get to all the bolts all the way around and then pry that off, clean the surface up, and then RTV the pan back on. The only thing I need to do now is put oil back in it and call it done. Give you an idea of what there's the front. So you got two nuts here, and then of course you got the bolts that go around. There's the bolts for the lower oil pan gasket. That's it. Anyway, that's all I needed to do today, was get that on and hope that stops that leak. You can see right here, you can see how this structural support, those holes are slotted. So you need to make sure before you just tighten up either the transmission side or the engine side, you need to make sure that it's just snug up against, really either one of them's fine, and then snug the other end up and then start tightening them up. It needs to be pulled up, you know, up against the transmission and up against the engine before, you know, before it's tightened all up. So you can see the seam right there. I mean, it butts right up to the transmission, and it does the same thing on the engine side. Just make sure it's snugged up to both sides before you tighten it up. That's why those are slotted. Those holes are slotted so that that thing can move and be snugged up against both the transmission and the engine. You don't want a gap right there and have one side tightened all the way up, and then when you go to tighten the other side up, it ends up snapping this cast aluminum support, and then you're going to be getting another one of them. And other than putting oil in, that's about it. So I'm out. You guys take care. Okay, so it does have a torque for the structural support. I went ahead and pulled up the structural cover. And again, this is for a 2007 Jeep Wrangler with the 3.8, but any of the JKs with the 3.8, this is going to be the manual that you want to use. So as you can see here, it says install the bolt retaining the cover to oil pan. Do not tighten the bolts at this time. So you're basically installing all the bolts, but you're not tightening anything. You got a note here that says the structural cover must be held tightly against both the engine and transmission belt housing during tightening sequence. Failure to do so may cause damage to the cover. Tighten the two cover to transmission bolts to less than 25 foot-pounds. Oh, I'm sorry, 25 inch-pounds. So you're just snugging them up. The cover must be flush to the transmission belt housing machine surface. Starting with the cover to oil pan bolts, tighten the bolts to 40 foot-pounds. Then tighten the transmission cover bolts to 40 foot-pounds. So if you just snug up all the bolts, just to make sure that that pan, or that structural support, is buttered up against both the transmission and the engine side, you're going to be fine. Then once it's snugged up to both surfaces, then you just tighten the bolts up to 40 foot-pounds. You're good to go. Okay, so there you go. This was probably about a 20-minute job, I guess. So it doesn't take long. Of course, I could have taken longer and washed everything up and everything, but I just wanted to get it done. I'll pressure wash underneath of it later on. But anyway, there you go. Take care, guys and girls.